Good morning. Good morning. Oh, it's still spring. It's not due to get warm yet in the UK. I'm going to have to go left because the right-hand route is now shut for a week. We have a weird situation in Kent where most local authorities the schools take the week off before Easter and the week after, and we've taken off the 2 weeks after. So in Kent, we're still halfway through our Easter holidays, whereas everyone else is going back to school. So I've got a busy week ahead. We didn't last week wasn't too busy. I mean, this week coming up wasn't really booked up, and in fact, we had last week off. So this week has got booked up over the period that we were off. So you might say to yourself, how did that happen? I mean, who was doing that? And the answer is I was. And just to give you a little heads up as to how these things work. We were all off last week. And as I say, this week was pretty empty. So what happens is the inquiries still keep coming in. And our inquiries come in through emails, which tend to be existing patients who need to tell us about a crown's come off or something. And or mainly through our spreadsheet, our Google spreadsheet, where people click on it and say they want to request an appointment and tell us what it's for and what time of the week is best for them, etc., etc. So there are very few phone calls. That's the point I'm trying to make. So we don't really, I dare say we've had a few phone calls, but I don't think, I haven't. I've forgotten to take the phone to work. I might turn around and go back and get that because that's a nuisance. Well, I mean, it's all on the console. We can dial into Vonage and find out what's in any messages that have been left. So, yeah, so it's not. I don't think it's fair to ask the staff to carry on doing their jobs basically while they're on holiday and probably illegal. So, but having said that, if there are some things which have been resolved, then I do put a note on the internal WhatsApp group so that people know that I've just kept up to date with the progress of things, and they're not like notes saying, but can you just ring Mrs. So-and-so and check she's still coming in for her appointment and stuff like that. I don't ask them to do any work, but I do put up notices, if you like, about things that have happened, with the idea being that they can just, when they get them, they don't even have to look at them because they could look at them all when they come back to work. But they do like to know what's going on because we're working on these projects jointly. And so if we've had a big win in a project, then I like to make sure that they know. So one example was that we had a email through our dental lab has been sold to a corporate. I mean, it was a limited company anyway, but it's now become part of this other dental lab group. And, you can find out quite a lot about companies now online. So I Googled this company online, and it turns out it's started in March 2024, I think, and its accounts to March 2025 were due last month, and it hasn't submitted any accounts at all. So I don't know what on earth is going on. It's borrowed money and from a debt factoring company, which is a company that buys invoices at a discount rate. So, for example, let's say let's just take in any invented figures, right? Nothing to do with the lab, but just say that it buys £100,000 worth of invoices, outstanding invoices, and it buys them at say £70,000, and on the basis that it expects to collect 80% of the money, so or even 75% of the money, anything more than what they paid for them, minus their expenses, of course, and then so it's basically like a second-hand market in invoices. Now, I've never found that very attractive myself. I don't really like credit factoring because, first of all, I don't like credit. I mean, as you know, we operate this system through Square where we invoice people 2 days in advance. And if they haven't paid 2 days in advance, then we just cancel their appointment. So we really don't have debts. But credit factoring and invoice factoring are things that, I mean, large companies do. I don't know whether I'd necessarily recommend companies at the level of dental practices and dental laboratories get involved with credit factoring. But anyway, these credit factoring people, obviously it's a license to print money because they've lent this dental laboratory corporate enough money to go on an acquisition spree. And they've gone on an acquisition spree that Gordon Gekko would be proud of. They've started buying dental labs here, there and everywhere. And from what I can work out from GPT is it's funded through debt. In other words, what they do is they take out loans to buy the companies, and then they borrow more money through the companies that they buy. And so, in the end, the whole thing is just completely very highly leveraged and structured in a way that the debt is, I mean, most of the time it brings the whole pack of, the whole pyramid of cards down. I would have thought so, especially in these days, because cheap debt has gone now, hasn't it? And it's all evaporated now. You're not going to be paying much less than 5%. Bearing in mind that base rate is 4-point-something%, what are you going to be borrowing at for that sort of speculative debt? I wouldn't imagine much less than 1.5% over base. If base is 4.25, that's 5.75. And bearing in mind it's particularly risky sort of debt, I would say probably they're paying 6 or 7% on all that debt. So that's an awful lot of income. You're going to end up with basically end up with what's called a zombie company, which is where the company has to borrow money to service the debt costs. And so the debt pile just goes up. It has to stumbles on as a zombie company with all the new borrowing going towards servicing the existing and the new debt. But anyway, my purpose in saying all this is not really to comment on what the lab's done. I don't know what the lab's, as far as I'm concerned, someone's made them an offer that they can't refuse. And hopefully they've got the money from the sale and nobody can take that back from them, except that they are now working for another company. Their company is just one of the companies in the larger holding company. And again, it's a pyramid style structure where if the main company comes down, the whole lot comes down. So what happens is they start using these other accounts. They used to have a little accounts lady, and now we've started getting invoices through this Xero software. So we noticed that was a difference. No, I was expecting that anyway because of the making tax difficult regulations that came in this which requires you to do 4 times the admin. And everyone's like, well, don't worry, you don't have to pay your tax any differently. You just have to do 4 times the admin. And for what? For what? What's the point of making you do 4 tax returns a year if you're not going to ask people to pay tax 4 times a year? And of course, that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to put it on a footing like PAYE, aren't they? And your nest pension payments and things like that. Eventually, you'll just end up doing it monthly. I'm pleased to say, as a limited company myself, I'm currently exempt because they've gone after sole traders. They're after people who sell on eBay and stuff like that. I think they know that limited companies tend to have fairly kosher accounts, because at some point there is an accountant or a director who's responsible for making sure the figures are not too laughable. So I suppose as a limited company, they didn't have to do this, but they've just gone onto a centralized structure, which is somewhat of I would describe it as something like a franchise, but without the joint logo branding. And they've probably been beguiled by the offer of centralized payroll, centralized invoicing, centralized HR, and I don't blame them for that, because for most small businesses now, it has become very onerous to do all these stuff. Now, I know about this because I set up a franchise, a dental franchise, and we explored all of this centrally. We could see that it makes sense for dentists to centralize all those functions. So we tried to get dentists together into a franchise where they would, and at that time we were trying to fight the corporates, and the corporates had all these benefits of centralization. In fact, they actually bought the existing dental supply companies so that they wouldn't have to pay third-party prices for their materials and stuff like that. So you've got centralized purchasing. But so I know there are advantages to that. The reason why I did it as a franchise and not in the way that they're doing it, which is going to third parties for funding, is because the dentists retained ownership of the practices. They got all the benefits of the centralized services, for which they paid a percentage of their turnover, but they kept their own practices. So it was a way for dental practitioners to fight back against corporates. But it didn't catch on. And the reason why it didn't catch on was simple. And I think I've covered this in the past, which is that the dentists just weren't prepared to disclose what they turned over. And if you can't find out reliably what they've turned over, then you can't reliably charge them a percentage of their turnover. So that was where that all foundered. Cost me a packet. One of the biggest financial mistakes of my life, because I was doing something for what can I put it? Ideological, not theological, but theoretical reasons, and not worrying too much about the development costs, which will cripple me because they weren't tax deductible. So, in the transfer of the accounts, what happened was we get this 3 invoices from 4 months ago. And it's a standard, these invoices have now been outstanding for 4 months. Can we have payment by the end of the week? So I wrote back and said, we're on holiday. No, you'll have to sort it out when we get back. But then I was sitting down and I thought, I've got 5 minutes. I'll go and see if I can. And all of our stuff is scanned. All the old invoices are scanned. All the old statements are scanned. Bank statements are scanned. So I thought, I'll just look and see. And we were pretty sure that it wasn't true, because we pay our bills, we get 30 days. So February we pay at the end of March, March we pay at the end of April, etc., etc. And we do this on a regular routine, and I trust very much the person who does our accounts. I'm sure she's just straight as a die, and it's very simple anyway. I mean, really. So I wanted just to find out whether she'd made a mistake, which I thought there was a 1% chance of, or more likely the sale of the dental lab to this corporate body who was funded by some credit factors has led to the reissue of some invoices that shouldn't have been chased up, because they've put all the invoices in the system and somebody has just put some wrong invoices in. Now, I don't know whether they did it in the expectation that we would just look at them and say, oh, well, okay, yeah, sure, here's the money. It was only about 450 quid. But it was 450 quid that we didn't think we owed. And so, sure enough, I just dug out the old statements, and I dug out the old our bank statements, and sure enough, we've got evidence that we paid the statement for that month, which included the invoices that they'd sent. Actually, initially, we asked for the invoices, and they sent us, of the invoices they quoted, they sent us 2 of the 3 that they quoted and 1 that was completely unrelated. So it's quite obvious that their accounts department is in chaos, which is pretty bad, considering that for credit invoice factors, it does strike me as a sort of blunderbuss, laissez-faire, casual approach that oh dear, that's a shame, that these credit factors, they spray invoices and warning notices and threats of court action all over the place, and then and just because it's a percentage game, as I say, they've got a percentage of the invoices that they've bought that they expect to collect, and anything they can do to put the chances of beating that percentage up, they will do, including, it would appear, send out invoices that have been already paid. So, bus. I've always wanted to learn to drive a bus. I'd love to have a PSV license. Then I could buy a bus and take all my friends to the seaside. That's my aim in life. So anyway, just to wind things up, what I do is, when I'm on holiday, I will do half an hour, no more, and that's because half an hour is all that is required. I will do half an hour answering emails and making appointments and stuff like that, and then when the staff come in this morning, they'll find that the week is all booked up, and they've got very little to do, because I think it's a valid criticism, isn't it, of the staff if they say, well, we've had a week off, but then when we get back, all that work that we had to do in that week, it's all just backed up in our inbox. So, but you might say, well, you own the surgery. What are you doing it? This is why you pay people to do this. And yeah, that is true. But, I've got this MBWA philosophy, which is management by wandering about. And that includes me being able to do the admin every bit as well as the staff. It's the nursing I have trouble with. So we're going to be, there'll be a few parcels to open. There'll be a few, perhaps, emails from Friday to open. But other than that, another lovely day in paradise. And I'll get this uploaded as soon as I can. And I hope you're well. Hope you're on holiday. And I'll see you soon. Bye.